Hello, hello. Ever wonder how to make your subject stand out without actually painting it? Today I'm going to show you how to paint using negative space. It's one of my favorite techniques and it's actually really fun once you get the hang of it. So welcome to day 14 of our Watercolor Tip-a-Day series. And today we are painting leaves that are slightly overlapping. I'm going to walk you through the whole process step by step, so let's get into it. Alright, so I've taped down my paper because we're going to be working wet into wet, and this helps prevent warping and keeps everything nice and clean around the edges. But before we paint anything though, we're going to sketch out our subject. You can draw anything that you'd like for this. I'm going to be using a regular pencil, but you can absolutely use a watercolor pencil if you want your lines to disappear as you paint. I'm going to start by drawing a few basic leaf shapes, just spaced out, nothing too detailed, and I'm not overlapping them right now. We're going to use paint and value later on to create the illusion of some leaves being closer and some sitting further back. So just try to keep your sketch simple. And now here's the fun part. So just because we're painting negative space doesn't mean that the paper has to stay white. A lot of people think negative space means blank paper, but in watercolor it can also mean building layers around your subject, letting the shape appear by contrast. You can see here that I'm painting around the shapes, leaving the space inside white, and I'm sort of putting down small layers, dropping it in, and just sort of painting around. There's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do this, but today I'm going to show you something a little bit different. So I'm going to start by laying down a full wet wash all over the paper. So I've wet the entire surface, and now I'm dropping in soft, beautiful blues and greens to create a subtle, organic looking background. Sort of let it flow, let it drip, let the colors mingle together. This creates depth before we even start building our shapes. Once I'm happy with how the background looks, I'm going to let it dry completely, either by using air or a heat tool if you're impatient like me. Next step is building the negative space even further. So now our first wash is dry. We're going to start building on top of it, this time by painting around our subject. So I'm sort of working in sections here so I can control the paint and water flow a little bit better. I begin by outlining the shape of one leaf and using just clean water or very light wash of color. Then while that area is still wet, I'm dropping in more pigment around the leaf. This is where you can start to get creative. Some leaves I want to feel closer for the viewer, so I'm going to leave them lighter and untouched for now. Others I want to feel like they're sitting further back, so I'm going to use darker washes around them and sort of let them fade into the background a bit. You can even overlap leaves by painting darker shapes around the ones you've already revealed, and it creates this gorgeous illusion of depth. Sort of think of it like stacking layers of glass. Each layer gives your painting more richness and more realism. So I'm just going to continue to keep painting the leaves, blues, greens, deeper greens, whatever you like, and I'm just letting them blend outward. We're not painting the leaf itself, we're painting the space around the leaf for the ones that we want to pop out in front. And then as we build layer after layer, those shapes are going to slowly start to emerge, glowing against the darker backgrounds. So just keep going section by section and re-wetting as needed. It's totally okay to let the layers dry in between. In fact, it kind of gives you more control and lets you play with depth and contrast. And now as we get closer to our final layers, this is when we're going to really start to pick up our boldest shadows and darkest colors. You see I'm placing them close next to the outline of the leaves, and they're really starting to pop. Like, this is when the negative painting magic fully comes to life. You'll see your leaves start really coming forward. They'll look brighter and more three-dimensional, while the deeper tones push back in the background. That's the power of this technique. It's not about the shapes that you paint, it's about the shapes that you don't paint. It looks so cool. And if you wanted to try this technique with masking fluid, you totally could by painting your subject, first masking it off and then layering your background. But today we're obviously focusing purely on negative space, and honestly I think it's a little bit more rewarding. It gives you so much practice with control, and it's super relaxing once you get into the groove. You can do so many layers. Like, this isn't even my final layer, but you can just keep going and going. It's super relaxing. Look how beautiful the blends are. And just to watch the edges sort of blend out like that, so pretty. Alright, now I would say that we are at our final layers. This is where you can go your boldest colors and your deepest shadows and really, really carve out those shapes. Look at that contrast that's starting to form. Looks so cool. I'm just going in with the tip of my brush and just carefully deepening the color around some of those leaf edges, and especially near the base or in between the other shapes. That contrast, again, is what makes the leaves pop. We really want the crisp edges on the ones that we want to be appearing forward. That was like a tongue twister to say. But yeah, this is kind of where you're going to do your final things. This is glazing right over. See how I'm deepening that back layer, but I'm not going like super, super dark. So it sort of just appears slightly behind. Now I'm just going in and putting in my final bold details. This is such a satisfying process. Negative space painting can be a little intimidating at first, but I promise the more you practice, the more natural it starts to feel. So if your shapes feel a little wobbly or your values didn't come out exactly how you imagined, that is totally okay. It is part of learning. The fact that you showed up, tried something new, and made something with layers and intention, that is a win in itself. And honestly, you can keep building on this technique in so many different ways. Use it for florals, animals, abstract work. And once you start seeing the space around things, your whole approach to watercolor kind of shifts, and you start to slow down and notice more and create with a lot more depth and confidence. So give yourself credit for sticking with it today. Tomorrow we're going to be going into one of my favorite techniques, which is dry brushing. It's such a fun contrast to what we did today. Whereas today was all about soft edges and watery transitions, dry brushing gives us that crispy, scratchy texture. It's perfect for adding interest on top of these types of layers. So make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss it, and I will see you back here tomorrow for day 15.